After my dad disowned me for staying in the ICU with my daughter instead of funding my sister's engagement, I cut off accounts, blocked them, party collapse. Hey, my family treated me like their personal handyman and wallet for years. I finally said enough, focused on my daughter and cut them off. I thought that was the end of it, but they had other plans. Before we get there, let me start from the beginning. I'm Nate Halpern. I'm 36, a high school physics teacher, and a single dad. My wife Leia passed away the day our daughter was born. Since then, it's been just me and Maya. She's 12 now, smart, sarcastic, and obsessed with space. My family? Complicated. My parents, Gerald and Elaine, still think respect means doing whatever they say. My younger sister, Clara, has been their favorite since birth. I've spent most of my life being the responsible one. That morning, the hallway outside the ICU felt like another planet. Quiet, cold, full of machines humming behind closed doors. Nurses moved past like ghosts, calm but busy. I'd been there all night. Maya had been admitted with a severe asthma attack that turned into something worse. They said respiratory failure in critical condition, and my brain just stopped keeping time. After that, I sat against the wall watching the monitor through the glass. The beeping was steady now. Earlier, it had been chaos. I whispered her breathing counts under my breath. Inhale, exhale, like keeping score might help her somehow. My coffee was cold. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. That's when my phone buzzed again, the third time that morning. I didn't even need to check. It was my dad. I let it ring twice, then answered. Yeah. His voice came sharp, like he was already mid-argument. Nate, I've been calling. You didn't answer. I'm at the hospital, I said. Maya's in the ICU. I know, he said. And I'm sorry, but we need to talk about Clara's engagement party. It's tomorrow. We're setting up today, and your mother can't lift everything herself. You were supposed to cover the catering. I thought maybe I'd misheard him. Dad, she's on life support. I'm aware, he said flatly. But family obligations don't just disappear. Clara's worked hard for this. And your mother's a wreck, trying to get things ready. I stared at the floor tile, trying to process that someone could say those words out loud. I can't leave, I said. She's critical. I'm not leaving my kid to hang streamers. He sighed. That long, irritated sigh I'd known my whole life. You always have an excuse. Every time the family needs something, you vanish. You think you're better than everyone because you've got your little job and your tragic story. My voice stayed level. You called me while my daughter's fighting to breathe. What did you think I'd say? You could have said yes, he snapped. You could have shown up. You think you're the only one with problems? I didn't answer right away. The silence stretched. I could hear someone down the hall crying softly, a monitor beeping faster, a nurse saying clear. Everything in me was tired. I'm not discussing this, I said finally. If you can't show up for family, he said, his voice turning hard, don't expect family to show up for you. Do whatever you need to do, I told him. My tone surprised even me, calm, like the words weren't heavy at all. He paused, then said it. Then you're cut off. I waited a second, mostly to see if he'd say anything human after that. He didn't. Good, I said, and hung up. No yelling, no lecture, just done. For a few seconds, I sat there staring at my reflection in the phone screen, like someone had finally stopped a noise that had been playing for years. I opened my contacts, scrolled to his name, and hit block. Then I did the same for the house number. A nurse walked by and smiled politely. I nodded back, slipped the phone into my pocket, and stood. My legs felt stiff but steady. Through the ICU window, Maya was small under all those wires. Her hair pulled back with a hospital clip, her face pale but peaceful. Machines breathed for her in slow rhythm, the sound steady and almost hypnotic. I went back in, took her hand, and sat down beside her. Her fingers were warm now. They'd been cold when we got here. The doctor had said she was stable, but every beep still felt like a held breath. I brushed her hair away from her forehead and whispered, "You're not alone, kiddo. I'm right here." She didn't move, but I kept talking anyway, about the stars she loved, the school project she'd been working on, the dumb sci-fi movie we hadn't finished. I talked until my voice steadied again. I leaned back in the chair, watching the slow rise and fall of her chest, and felt the first clean breath I'd taken in years. When the adrenaline wore off, my mind started digging through old memories, like it was trying to make sense of how I ended up here. Sitting in a hospital room, alone, with my father's voice still echoing in my head. I guess it started early. When I was 12, helping out in our house didn't mean chores or taking out trash. It meant doing the things my dad didn't want to. If the lawnmower broke, I fixed it. If the gutters overflowed, I climbed up there. If mom needed groceries, I biked across town and carried them home in my backpack. There was no asking. It was just expected. When I turned 16, I got my first job at a gas station. I thought I'd finally have my own money. 2 weeks later, Dad asked for half of my paycheck for bills. That half never stopped being half. By 18, I was paying the water bill because he forgot. At 20, I was fixing his truck on weekends and covering my sister's late rent because she just needed a few days. Clara was 7 years younger and the complete opposite of me. Where I was the one doing repairs, she was the one being rescued. If she crashed a car, Dad paid for the tow and blamed the road. If she failed a class, Mom said the teacher was too hard on her. If she cried, the whole house froze until she smiled again. When I confronted her once about her spending, she laughed. "You're just jealous that people like helping me." That line stuck for years. My mom had her own version of control, emotional guilt wrapped in kindness. Whenever I tried to say no, she'd say, "You're the only one we can count on." If I didn't help, she'd get quiet for days, banging pots around the kitchen or sighing loud enough for me to hear from my room. It was never yelling, it was disappointment, and somehow that hurt worse. So I learned early. Saying yes kept the peace. Saying no made me the problem. When I married, things shifted for a bit. Leia saw how my family operated and called it what it was. "They don't want help, Nate," she said once. "They want control." I didn't believe her back then. I thought being dependable was just who I was. Then Maya was born. And Leia never came home from the hospital that day. Everything changed again. At first, my parents acted like they wanted to support me. They moved in for a few weeks to help with the baby. It took about 3 days before the criticism started. My dad told me I was holding Maya wrong. My mom said I wasn't washing bottles right. Every suggestion came with a tone like I was already failing. When I asked them to give me some space, they called me ungrateful. "We lost Leia too," my mom said. "You don't get to push us out." I let them stay longer than I should have, partly because I was scared, partly because I was exhausted. But the longer they stayed, the clearer it became they weren't there for me or for Maya. They were there to feel needed. Eventually, I told them to leave. My dad took it as a betrayal. My mom cried for an hour and said, "You'll regret this when she's older." They didn't visit again for months, and when they did, it was like an inspection. Every time they came by, they'd look around the apartment like they were grading it. "You still haven't fixed that faucet?" Or "Maya's too thin." They called it concern. I called it control with manners. When Maya started school, they'd offer help. Rides, money for supplies, babysitting. Every single time it came with strings. If I took the money, I'd hear about it for months. If I said no, I was too proud. After a while, I just stopped answering when they called. It didn't stop them from showing up anyway. Now, sitting by Maya's bed, I saw it all clearly. Every time they said family, what they meant was obligation. Every time they said help, they meant hold still while we take over. And I let it happen for years because I thought that's what good sons do. The nurse walked in and adjusted one of the monitors. Maya's numbers looked better. Small progress, but progress. I thanked the nurse, and when she left, I sat back and looked at my daughter's face. Even with the tubes and wires, she looked calm, stronger than I felt most days. I realized something right then. My parents never taught me what love looked like. They taught me what usefulness looked like. Love to them was measured in favors, in obedience, in how much I could give before breaking. But Maya wasn't going to learn that. Not from me. I reached over, touched her hand gently, and said, "You're not here to fix anyone, kiddo. You're just here to live." Her fingers twitched, small, almost nothing, but enough. I leaned back in the chair and let the thought settle. I wasn't raised to be loved. I was raised to serve. But that ends here. Around noon the next morning, I checked my phone for the first time since the argument with my father. 32 missed messages lit up the screen, all from the family group chat. Halpern family with a sunflower emoji Clara had added years ago. I opened it. Mom had sent a long list of items for Clara's engagement party. Tablecloths, candles, remember to bring the folding chairs from your garage. Clara replied with photos of decorations, asking which color balloons matched better with her theme. Someone else dropped a playlist link, and Dad had written, "We'll need the truck by 3. Nate, don't be late." I scrolled through it twice, reading the comments like they belonged to strangers. Not one of them had asked about Maya. Not one message even mentioned her name. I typed slowly, "Maya is in ICU. I'm not coming. Don't ask me for money. Don't contact me unless it's about her." I stared at it for a few seconds before hitting send. The 3 dots popped up instantly. Mom replied first, "Your grandmother would be heartbroken if she saw how cold you've become." Then Clara, Seriously, you're ruining my weekend. This is supposed to be my happy time. Dad came next. Grow up and stop making everything about you. The dots blinked again. Another cousin chimed in with, wow, family is family, man. Another aunt wrote, you can't stay mad forever. The flood kept coming. Paragraphs, guilt, old stories twisted into proof that I was selfish. I didn't reply. I turned the phone face down on the table and sat back. The screen kept lighting up, buzzing over and over like it refused to accept silence. When it finally stopped, I muted the group for a year. For the first time, there was nothing I needed to explain. After that, I went into my email and started cutting off every old tie I could think of, joint account with my parents from years ago, closed, auto-pay connections on cards Clara used for emergencies, canceled, passwords changed, every one of them. Each click felt cleaner. While I worked through it, a nurse came in to check Maya's vitals. She's improving, she said. Her oxygen levels are steady. I nodded and thanked her. The nurse smiled and left. I looked at Maya's hand resting on the blanket. Her fingers twitched every now and then, small movements that reminded me she was still fighting. I whispered, we're okay, kiddo. They can throw their party. We're staying right here. I leaned back and thought about how my whole life had been noise, constant calls, demands, guilt, people pretending it was love while draining every ounce of peace I had. The noise had filled every space until I didn't even realize how tired I was. Now that it was gone, it felt strange, like walking out of a crowded room into open air, light, but unfamiliar. I checked the window. It was starting to snow outside, soft flakes sticking to the glass. I remembered when Maya was 6, catching snowflakes on her gloves and saying, each one is different, Dad. Like fingerprints, but colder. That memory hit hard. She had always been observant, sharp, in ways most adults missed. I reached for her tablet from the nightstand and queued up one of her favorite space documentaries, letting the narrator's calm voice fill the room. In the silence of space, it began. Everything moves, but nothing makes a sound. I let that line sit. My phone buzzed again. A text from Clara, outside the group chat this time. You're being dramatic. Mom's crying now. You could have just said you. Busy. I didn't even open it fully. I just blocked her number, same as my dad's. Blocking them didn't touch the family group chat, but it kept my phone quiet. They could spin whatever story they wanted for once. I didn't care how they told it. I turned my focus back to Maya. The steady rhythm of her breathing matched the slow pulse on the monitor. The lines moved across the screen like quiet proof of life. For years, I'd been trained to measure my worth by how much I could give. Money, time, patience, silence, all of it traded for the illusion of peace. Now I was sitting here in a hospital chair, broke in all the usual ways, but finally free in one. The next afternoon, Maya was stable enough that I could finally breathe without counting the seconds, between her heart monitor beeps. The doctor said she was responding well. For the first time in days, I let myself believe she might be okay. I had just stepped out to grab a cup of coffee from the vending machine when I saw my father walking down the hall. He wasn't supposed to be there. His shoulders were squared, that same heavy stride that used to fill every doorway when I was a kid. My mother followed a few steps behind, clutching her purse like it might help her case. He didn't even look around for a nurse or check-in counter. He walked straight toward me. Nate, he said, loud enough for half the hallway to hear. We need to talk. I didn't move. You shouldn't be here. It was the day before Clara's party. He'd come to force the issue. He stopped a few feet away, eyes locked on mine. You blocked my number. That's childish. You think cutting everyone off makes you a good father? I glanced at the nurse station. 2 of them were pretending not to look. This isn't the place, I said. Maya's resting. This is exactly the place, he shot back. You embarrassed your family in that group chat. You humiliated your mother, your sister. I told the truth, I said. That's not humiliation. That's clarity. He stepped closer. You're talking like a stranger. Since when do you act like you're too good for us? I kept my tone even. Since you made me choose between my daughter and your party. His jaw tightened. Don't twist my words. You've always been dramatic. One little request. I cut him off. She's 12. She was hooked up to a ventilator, and you called to ask about decorations. He waved a hand like it was nothing. You make it sound worse than it is. Your sister's engagement. Stop, I said. He didn't. You think you're some kind of martyr because you're raising a kid alone? You've let that define you for too long. Everyone loses people, Nate. The hallway went quieter. I felt my pulse spike. "Don't talk about her," I said. He folded his arms. "Laya isn't here anymore, and hiding behind her memory doesn't make you righteous." That was it. The line he didn't get to cross. I stepped closer until we were eye to eye. My voice dropped low. "You don't speak her name again. Not here. Not ever." For a second, he didn't react. Then I saw it. The quick flash of something like uncertainty. He tried to recover with a scoff. "You threatening me now?" "No," I said. "I'm setting a boundary. You're leaving now." He glanced past me toward Maya's room. "You're really going to throw me out in front of everyone?" "Yes." He stared at me, searching for the part of me that used to fold. When he didn't find it, he tried a softer angle. "You've changed," he said. "Your mother's been sick about this." Mom stepped forward, voice trembling just enough to sound rehearsed. "We just wanted to see her, Nate. You can't keep us away forever. She's our granddaughter." "She's my daughter," I said, "and she's not a prop for family forgiveness." Mom's expression cracked for a second, then reset into disappointment. "You don't mean that." "I mean every word." Dad's tone shifted again, from guilt to command. "If you walk away from your family, don't expect us back when you need help." I gave him a look I'd practiced in silence for years. "I've never needed your help. You needed mine." He opened his mouth, but nothing came out. Behind him, a nurse started walking toward us, probably to diffuse whatever she thought was happening. I held up a hand to let her know it was fine. My father saw the gesture and straightened his coat. "You're going to regret this." "Maybe," I said, "but not today." I turned toward my mother. "Go home, Mom. She's still recovering. This isn't good for her." She hesitated. "You're really doing this?" "I'm really doing this." Dad muttered something under his breath, then turned and walked away. Mom followed, glancing back once before catching up to him. When they were gone, the nurse came over. "You okay?" "I'm fine," I said. "Sorry about that." She nodded. "Happens more than you think." I waited until they disappeared down the hall before walking back into Maya's room. I sat down beside her and took her hand. Her fingers curled slightly around mine, instinct more than anything. For years, I'd mistaken submission for peace, thinking staying quiet kept things from breaking, but it only made the cracks deeper. Now, with them gone, I didn't feel relief exactly. It was something else, a stillness that didn't ask for permission. I looked at her sleeping face and said quietly, "I didn't win, kiddo. I just stopped losing." By the end of the week, Maya was breathing on her own again. No tubes, no oxygen mask, just her sleeping under a thin hospital blanket, her chest rising steady and slow. The doctor said she'd probably be discharged in a few days if she kept improving. That was the only thing that mattered. I'd been living on vending machine coffee and 4 hours of sleep a night, but I didn't care. Every good report felt like a win. The first sign of fallout came 2 mornings later. A coworker texted me a screenshot from Facebook. My dad had posted some long paragraph about being betrayed by your own blood and losing trust in someone who was supposed to lead the family. My name wasn't in it, but it didn't need to be. Half the comments were people writing, "Stay strong, Gerald." Mom added her own post that afternoon, a photo of her and Clara hugging at the engagement party setup with a caption about leaning on those who still believe in family. Then Clara made her move. On her Instagram story, she posted, "Some people forget who fed them when they were hungry. But that's okay. God sees everything. I didn't even have to scroll to know they were all talking about me." I set the phone down, stared out the window at the parking lot below, and felt absolutely nothing. No anger, no sadness, just a kind of distance, like watching strangers reenact something I used to be part of. That evening, I got the first email alert. A declined transaction on an old credit card, one that was supposed to be inactive, then another. $230 at a party supply store, then $600 from a catering service. Those vendors still had my old number saved in their profiles, so they tried to run it. I called the bank right away. The woman on the line pulled up my account. "It looks like someone tried to use your previous card," she said. "Do you recognize the merchant?" "Yeah," I said. "Unfortunately, I do." She asked if I wanted to press charges. I told her no, just shut everything down. We went through my recent activity and flagged every recurring charge. The rep read out the merchants, I wrote them down. The bank shut the card and blocked new charges. After we hung up, I called each company myself, removed my name from the utility account, closed the gas card auto pay, and canceled the Costco auto renew. Each click felt cleaner. When the call ended, the rep said, "All secure now, Mr. Halpern. You're good to go." For a second, that sentence felt bigger than she probably meant it to. The next day, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "You didn't have to go nuclear. You're embarrassing us." I didn't reply. A few minutes later, another one. "Dad said you locked the family out of accounts. He's furious." I blocked the number. By Friday, the rumors had started making their way through extended family. My aunt sent a message saying, "Your parents told us you drained their savings." I told her that was impossible considering I never had access to their savings. She replied, "I don't want to be in the middle of this." That was fine by me. I stopped checking social media after that. Every time I opened an app, there was some half-truth being shared like it was gospel. They were painting me as cold, ungrateful, selfish. I'd spent most of my life trying to avoid being called those things. Now, hearing them didn't even sting. At night, when Maya slept, I sat in the chair by her bed and wrote down every account, every login, every payment detail I needed to fix. It was boring work, but it gave me focus, something solid. I canceled the family phone plan that was still in my name. I called the utility company and removed myself from the house account I hadn't lived in for over a decade. I changed my email passwords, my recovery numbers, even my Amazon login. One by one, I closed every door they used to walk through without knocking. The nurse who'd been on shift all week stopped by with fresh linens. "She's lucky to have a dad like you," she said, nodding toward Maya. I smiled. I think I'm the lucky one. When she left, I sat back down, stretched my legs, and let my head rest against the chair. For the first time, there was no buzzing phone, no guilt sitting on my chest. Maya stirred, half awake. "Dad," she whispered. "I'm here," I said. Her eyes opened a little. "Are we going home soon?" "Yeah," I told her. "Soon." She smiled weakly. "Can we get pancakes first?" I laughed softly so I wouldn't set off the monitor. "Yeah, kiddo, pancakes first." She drifted back to sleep. I watched her for a long time, the steady rise and fall of her breathing. Every sound in that room was predictable. The monitor beep, the air vent, the faint hum of fluorescent lights. After years of noise from people who never listen, this kind of predictability felt like peace. My family could say whatever they wanted. They could twist every story until it looked like I was the villain. But the truth was simple. I wasn't reacting anymore. I looked at Maya, safe and still, and realized silence wasn't loneliness, it was freedom. A week later, the doctor signed the discharge papers, and Maya came home. The apartment felt unfamiliar, like we were moving back into our own lives after being gone too long. The air smelled different, real air, not the sterile kind that hummed through hospital vents. She walked in slowly, still a little pale, a fingertip pulse oximeter clipped to her finger. "Home," she said quietly, then louder, "Home." I smiled. "Yeah, finally." We unpacked her things first. The stack of get-well cards from her classmates, her stuffed astronaut, the blanket one of the nurses gave her. I cleaned while she rested on the couch, then made soup, the kind she liked with tiny alphabet noodles. That first night, she insisted on sleeping in her own bed. I checked her pulse oximeter more than I needed to, but she didn't mind. "You're like a security system," she said, half asleep. "Yeah," I said. "One that doesn't turn off." The next morning, sunlight came through the blinds. And for the first time, it didn't feel like another day to survive. It just felt like a day. We fell into a routine again. Simple stuff, breakfast, meds, a slow walk outside, homework spread across the table. She drew planets on her math worksheets. I let her. On Wednesday, I went back to work for a few hours. My students surprised me. A welcome back note taped to the whiteboard, jokes written in the corners. The principal told me to take it slow. I told him I planned to. That afternoon, Maya and I made pancakes again, this time shaped like stars. She laughed when one fell apart. "It's a supernova," she said. She was right. The calm didn't last long before someone tried to interrupt it. Friday morning, my phone rang, unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. A minute later, it buzzed again. This time, I answered. "Mr. Halpern?" A familiar voice said, "This is Pastor Tom." Of course it was. "Your parents asked me to check in. They're worried about you and Maya." I kept my tone polite. "We're fine, Pastor. Thanks for calling." He hesitated. "They didn't mean to upset you, Nate. Family can get—" "I know what family can get," I said. "I appreciate your concern, but we're good. Would you like me to tell them that?" "Please do." I hung up before he could say more. For the rest of the day, my phone stayed silent. It felt like progress. That evening, Maya and I sat on the couch watching a nature documentary. Halfway through, she leaned her head on my shoulder. The next interruption came 2 days later, a text from Clara, from a different number, Ryan's phone. Hey, I know things are weird. Ryan and I could use some help this month. Rent's tight, just till we get on track. I read it twice, then typed back, I'm not your bank. I'm your brother. There's a difference. She saw it instantly. You don't have to be mean, she replied. Not being mean, I wrote. Just done. When she fired back, I blocked Ryan's number too. I set the phone face down and didn't touch it again. After that, the quiet settled in like furniture that finally belonged in the room. Maya started sketching again. Rockets, comets, even a few robots. We went on short walks after dinner, her hand in mine, the air cool but not cold. She talked about her science fair project like it was a classified mission. I listened to every word. One night, while she was drawing at the table, I opened my laptop to an email from the school district. They needed someone to lead the regional physics competition team this year. I almost said no out of habit, then changed my mind. I replied yes. When I told Maya, her eyes lit up. You're going to win, she said. I laughed. It's not about winning. Everything's about winning, she said. Even peace. She went back to drawing like she hadn't just said something smarter than most adults I know. The following week was uneventful in the best possible way. Work, cooking, homework, sleep. No unexpected phone calls, no guilt trips, no accounts mysteriously reopened. Just normal. I fixed the wobbly kitchen chair I'd been ignoring for months. I replaced the light bulb in the hallway. Maya teased me for finally doing chores. You're on a roll, she said. Don't jinx it, I told her. Sunday night, we made tacos and watched a movie. Halfway through, she fell asleep against my arm, her breathing steady and soft. I muted the TV and just sat there. It hit me then. This was what peace actually looked like. Not some grand moment or perfect ending, just small things that didn't hurt. 3 weeks passed without a single text, call, or rumor. The quiet stayed steady and I got used to it. Maya was back in school, healthy, full of jokes again. The apartment finally felt like ours. No ghosts, no noise, just life. It was a Saturday morning when the knock came. 3 short taps, then silence. I wasn't expecting anyone. When I opened the door, Gerald and Elaine were standing there. My dad in a pressed flannel like he was trying to look casual. My mom clutching a small box wrapped in silver paper. They both looked smaller somehow, not physically, but in presence. Before I could say anything, Maya came running from the living room. Grandma! Grandpa! Her voice was so bright it knocked the air out of me. She hugged them both before I could react. My first instinct was to tell them to leave, to protect the peace I'd built. But seeing her face, that kind of pure excitement, I couldn't do it. I stepped aside. 5 minutes, I said. She just got over being sick. Dad nodded. That's fair. They walked in slowly, like they were afraid to break something. Maya motioned for them to sit, but Dad stayed standing. Mom handed her the box. This is for you, she said softly. Maya tore the paper open and her eyes widened. It's the telescope, the one from the catalog. She turned it around in her hands like it was a treasure. Dad, look! I looked. It was the same model she'd shown me online months ago, the one I told her we'd save up for after the hospital bills. She hugged both of them again before running to her room to find a spot for it. The silence that followed was heavy but not hostile. Dad cleared his throat. We didn't come to fight. Good, I said. He nodded once, slow. I've had time to think. I pushed too hard. I thought keeping control meant keeping the family together. Mom added, we only wanted to help, but we made it worse. I miss her. I miss Maya. I crossed my arms. You could have just said that instead of sending Pastor Tom or trying to ruin me online. Dad winced. You're right. No excuses. No attempt to justify it. That was new. I sat across from them. I'll say this once, but there are rules. Mom nodded. Whatever you need. No manipulation, I said. No guilt trips. No bringing up money. And you don't show up uninvited again. Text first and wait for me to say yes. Dad looked at me for a long time, then said, understood. Maya came back out, hugging the telescope box. Can we set it up tonight? We can, I said, if the sky is clear. Mom smiled at her, cautious but warm. We'd like to see that too, if it's okay. I looked at Maya, not them. She was grinning. And that was my answer. We'll see, I said. After they left, the apartment felt quiet again, but this time it didn't feel invaded, just adjusted, like a window had opened for a minute and then closed again. That afternoon, I was cleaning up dishes when there was another knock. 2 knocks, then one more. A different rhythm. When I opened the door, Clara was there. Ryan stood a step behind her, hands in his pockets, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. Clara looked nervous, her makeup minimal, her voice lower than usual. "Can we talk?" I leaned on the doorframe. "Depends. What about?" She swallowed. "Everything. Mostly me." Maya peeked from the hallway. "Aunt Clara!" Clara smiled a little. "Hey, kiddo." I stepped aside, motioned them in. "Make it quick." Clara stood near the counter, twisting a ring on her finger. "I was selfish," she said. "I made everything about me, even when you were just trying to protect Maya. I said things online I shouldn't have. I'm sorry." Ryan nodded. "She's been wanting to say that for a while." Clara continued. "I know sorry doesn't fix what we did, but I don't want Maya growing up thinking we hated each other." Maya stepped forward. "I don't think that. I just didn't like when everyone was mean to Dad." That one sentence hit harder than anything else could have. Clara looked at her, eyes glassy. "You're right," she said. "We were mean. You didn't deserve that." Maya nodded once and handed her a piece of paper she'd been holding. One of her drawings, a cartoon rocket labeled "Family Trying Again." Clara smiled and wiped her eyes. "Thanks." I looked at her and said, "Let's be clear. If you want to be part of our lives, you have to understand that I'm not your backup plan anymore. No loans, no bailouts, no guilt." "I get it," she said quickly. "I don't want money. I just want us to be okay again." "Okay takes time," I said. She nodded. "Then I'll wait." After they left, Maya was practically bouncing. "Everyone's saying sorry," she said. "That means we can have family dinners again, right?" I smiled faintly. "Maybe small ones." Then I texted both my parents and Clara, "Sky's clear. If you want to see Jupiter, come by at 8. Short visit." That evening, the sky was clear enough for stars. We set up the telescope on the balcony. I let Maya handle most of it. She was careful and confident, tightening the screws, adjusting the lens. At 8, right on time, headlights slid into the parking lot. My parents' car, then another. Clara and Ryan. I thought about sending them away, but Maya was already waving them over. "Come see Jupiter," she called out. They stepped out onto the balcony and joined us quietly. No drama, no tension. Clara helped Maya line up the focus. Dad stood off to the side, hands in his pockets, just watching. Mom brought a thermos of hot chocolate, handing out cups without saying much. For a while, nobody talked. The night was calm. Maya pointed to the telescope. "See that tiny dot next to Jupiter? That's one of its moons. Dad says it's called Io." Clara leaned over. "It's beautiful." Maya grinned. "It's fiery. I like it because it doesn't stay still." Dad laughed quietly. "Sounds like someone I know." I looked at him. He wasn't smiling at me, just watching his granddaughter, eyes softer than I'd seen in years. The peace that night didn't feel perfect. It felt cautious, temporary, but real. When everyone left, I tucked Maya into bed. She was still talking about the telescope, about how she could see the stars better than ever. I stood by her door for a minute, listening to her hum before falling asleep. Forgiving them didn't mean trusting them. It meant showing Maya that love with boundaries still counts as love.